Well, we'll come on to that question in a moment with Sadiq Khan, Shadow Minister for London. Welcome to you. But can we just pick up on what Andrew was talking to Tessa Jal about a little bit earlier, on these plans to allow 3-year tenancies and cap rents? She was saying they're voluntary, so that actually it may not have to come in, these tenancies won't come in anyway.
Well, every day I speak to Londoners who are struggling with the rent they pay. More than half of Londoners are renting. The average increase that people face is between 10 and 15%. I have come into my surgeries every week. Families who have a choice. Either they're moving their children from schools every 6 to 12 months because the landlord at the end of the tenancy increases the rent, or the children are travelling an hour and a half each day to get to school because family's been moved out of Tooting. So what are we going to do about that? We're going to try and fix the rental market. What we're going to say is tenancies between a tenant and landlord should be of 3 years duration. During those 3 years, the landlord can't do what they do now, which is increase every 6 to 12 months. But the increase has got to be linked to CPI, linked to inflation.
So that's a cap over those 3 years.
Yeah, so what it means is you as a tenant know what your rent's going to be over the next 3 years. You can plan. It means you're not moving your children every 6 to 12 months. They're not travelling long distances.
So the answer to the question...
You as the landlord also know how much income you'll be getting over the next 3 years.
So the answer to the question, though, put by Andrew earlier as well, is that why will landlords let to people wanting 3-year tenancies if they can let to people who want 1 or 2 year, who are saying we don't want to be here for 3 years?
Well, what you'll see is landlords wanting the certainty of knowing they've got 3-year tenancies in place, but also what you'll see is tenants negotiating with landlords, because you'll see landlords disclosing to tenants the rent the previous tenant paid. Combined with this will be a national register of landlords.
We'll be disclosing.
So you can check the quality of
disclosing, but there'll be no obligation on that landlord to charge the same rent as the previous tenant. And of course, won't that landlord say, right, you're going to be there for 3 years, I'll charge you more in the first year as a result?
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why we're going to require landlords, if they're asked by a prospective tenant to find out how much the previous tenant paid, to disclose that. And
well,
then
do them any good. The landlord will say, OK, well, thanks. Well, I'll tell you that, but of course that's not relevant now because this is a new tenancy.
But then a tenant can negotiate with the landlord or go to another landlord as well. Look, Tim, we've got a crisis in housing in London. More than half of people's disposable income is being spent on rental. I was lucky enough in my mid-20s with my wife, with the aid of a mortgage, to be able to buy our property. Somebody today with a partner on a decent income has got no chance to rent a property in London, let alone buy one. We've got to fix the housing crisis in London.
How will it fix the housing?
Well, we're the only parties that's willing to do so.
One big aspect, and a number of the experts who commented on this today will have said this, of course, one big question here is about how this actually helps increase supply of housing rather than doing the opposite, because buy-to-let investors, they won't bother to invest in housing, will they? Well,
let me explain to you. Combined with fixing the rental market, we're going to build far more homes than any previous government has done in the recent past. We're aiming to build, by the end of the next Parliament, 200,000 homes a year.
And is that now to fill a gap that you accept? Do you accept that there'll be fewer buy-to-let investors now?
No, I don't.
How come? But why will they invest in housing now? We've just seen they're going to be getting less return in rent from you, aren't they?
Well, what will happen is we're going to increase the supply of homes in London. Last year, only 20,000 homes were built. The experts tell us it needs to be more than 50,000. We're going to make sure that the capital expenditure the government has a disproportionately high amount is spent on homes. We're going to say to developers who have permission to build homes but are sitting on it, what we call land banking, you either use that permission or you lose it. We're going to say to people who are building homes, you've got to make sure that at least half of those homes go to local residents. They get first dibs, and you can't sell off-plan.
To buy that.
And you can't sell
to buy. You mean first dibs to buy?
And you can't sell. Yeah, and you can't sell off-plan overseas, thereby increasing the supply of homes in London. And we're going to close the loopholes around empty properties, the so-called buy-to-leave. You've got people from around the world. I've got nothing against foreigners. Some of my best friends and family are foreigners. Malaysians, Singaporeans, Russians, oligarchs, buying properties in London, leaving them empty, almost like they're gold bricks. We're going to close those
in your
loopholes.
Your manifesto says neither about those things. It doesn't say anything about stopping foreign investors. It doesn't say about closing loopholes, does it?
Tim, our manifesto is 84 pages long. Even today's announcement from Ed Miliband.
Well, elaborate then. So you're saying, what is that policy? What are you going to do? You know that councils at the moment are able to charge people if they leave a house, a flat vacant for a certain time. What are you ensuring will happen by law, by statute?
So at the moment, what a empty property owner can do is put a table in there with 3 chairs, and it's no longer empty. So we're going to close that loophole to make sure they don't use the loophole of a table and 3 chairs. We're also going to give local authorities the power to penalise empty properties. Camden Council, for example,
they can do that now.
Camden Council, for example.
Well, they do it now.
I've talked about doubling the council tax. We're going to give them much more powers to take action against empty properties. What we can't have is a situation, Tim, which we have now, which is Londoners looking for homes to rent and to buy, and there not being those properties available. But you've got people sitting on properties which are sitting empty.
I think you mentioned the words capital investment earlier. Why aren't you allowing councils to start build more homes?
Well, we will be allowing them to build more homes because, for example, at the moment, the problem is that many of your viewers may not know this, but at the moment, the problem is they are only allowed to build up to what's called the housing revenue account. And the problem has been some councils are building right up to the HRA. Yeah. Other councils have got a big gap between the HRA and the numbers of homes they're building. So, for example, Wandsworth Council has got a big housing revenue account but doesn't build any homes. Good local authorities like Barking and Dagenham want to build more homes, but the HRA isn't big enough for them to do so.
Why not allow lift these borrowing caps?
What we're going to do, I mean, what we're going to do is allow local authorities to, for example, look if they can use the spare space in one local authority to build more homes in their area. But it's not all our eggs in one basket.
No, but an interesting detail.
Housing associations,
but you know a lot of
developers all need to be building more homes.
But you know a lot of people are saying, lift those caps, allow councils to build more or less what they want, let them borrow. You say, don't you, you want to allow borrowing for investment. Is this not the most crucial area?
One of the things that I would you'll see in the first Queen's speech of a Labour government is an English Devolution Act, devolving power to cities.
But we'll come on to devolution a little bit later. I just want to speak on that. Well, that's one fact.
It's relevant to this point,
but it's a very key one. Why not allow councils?
Well, let me answer the question, Tim.
Go. Yeah.
So the English Devolution Act will give power to cities and regions, including to London. And what I'd expect to see is a mayor of London arguing for that power for the 32 boroughs in London, and London Council.
We know he might argue for it, and you might be one of those people trying to do that in that position. Why would you not give that power straight away?
Because when you've got the biggest transfer of power from Whitehall to cities and regions, including London, what I'd hope to see is a future Labour Chancellor working with London councils and the Mayor to get London building again.
When we see, we've talked about this housing crisis, why is it that you bring in a tax, you know, a housing tax, mansion tax, which doesn't help deal with the housing problem in London, but you use the proceeds for other stuff?
Well, I'm very proud of living in a United Kingdom. I'm a Londoner, I'm an Englishman, but also I'm British. And one of the big principles we have as a country is people pay in as much as they can afford to do so within reason. It's progressive taxation.
You know, I'm not asking you about whether the redistributive effect of mansion tax yet. I'm asking about why you don't keep the money in.
And you spend on the basis of need, and we pool our resources. So look, the reality is, Tim, you and I both know that when you look at, for example, income tax, a disproportionately high amount comes from London. We don't call income tax a tax on Londoners. The same goes for business rates or corporation tax. London punches well above its weight, as it should do so as a capital city. Not unreasonably, we want to address the crisis there is in the National Health Service.
So what
we've said is, unlike the other parties, we want to explain how we're going to pay for our policies. We're going to spend £2.5 billion on a time to care fund, more doctors, more nurses, more midwives, more social care workers, and we're going to explain how we're going to pay for it.
We heard from the King's Fund how it's absolutely a tiny little amount, isn't it?
How are we going to pay for that?
It won't make any difference, though, he says, doesn't it?
How are we going to pay for that?
He says it won't make any difference, though. It's 8 billion is the gap.